Mr. Pascal Odibo joins us now. He's a business and financial analyst. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you, Chairman.
Well, again, we've got this situation on our hands now. 8 banks, one is off the hook, and so the other 8 restricted from accessing forex. And Mr. Anogo thinks that look, this would definitely send panic down the industry. But what option did CBN have?
Well, I've always said, and this is just not about CBN, it's about regulators generally.
Of which they are one.
Of which they are one, yeah. Regulators must come out from the cloak of Haman to the place where they're able to strategically work with the industry players for national growth, for the general good of all. You know, it's a strategic movement. You know, you start with, these are the laws, you need to keep the laws, you hammer it and all that, to a place where there is a collective mutual understanding that, you could be able to tell somebody, what, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. However, you've done this is what we're going to do. My take here is that, and maybe that's key into what we said, is that the regulators must become a lot much more strategic. A lot much more strategic. I give you an take the National Communications Commission and the issue that we had with the MTN. For the very first time, after you hit MTN, they declared a loss. If you continue to pressure them and they say one day, we can't operate here again, let's downsize.
Can that be looked at in the same context? Because many would say, well, that had a different kind of flavor, and those who were involved, and so they had to.
It's infraction. It's infraction. It's an infraction. It's an infraction. How you deal with an infraction is purely based on your strategic mode.
The circumstances involved notwithstanding.
Now let me make my point. My point is this: in dealing with, and I'm using this as an example just to tell you, the banks don't play with FX. That's a major source of their income. They make a lot of money from it. And that what sustains the system. A lot of other sources of income are there. But this is a major source of business for the banks. You get them out of that market, you create a panic. You create a panic, they begin to do a lot of things that you didn't intend. They're called collateral damage.
So if the Forex is a major source of income for the banks, that means they would work out avenues through which they will.
It's one of the sources of income. So just not a gentleman, but
it sounds like a major source.
But you and I know that it's gold. It's gold to them.
But how can we get out of this situation we found ourselves in?
The way to get out of this is for government, which they are trying to do, is to encourage people, businesses to earn FX, become export oriented. As long as everybody is looking up to CBN. The CBN will be managing what they have, and by so doing, setting the tone how you get it and how you don't get it. The banks have done what they have done because of the TSA.
Have CBN opened up that platform so everyone can earn foreign exchange?
No, it's not the CBN. It's the CBN.
When you say
it's a strategic tone of the government.
Okay. Huh? When you say everyone go and earn foreign exchange, that way you can
go and look at countries that don't have anything inside the ground. What do they do? It's because we are very primordial in our trust. You are selling the things at its primordial. Anything you sell at its local primordial level is primitive. If you sell oil, that's why I'm concerned about this diversification thing these guys are talking about. You will move away from oil, selling oil, to now start selling metals at their raw form. That is not it.
Yeah.
At the primordial level, you don't sell things at the primordial level. When you do so, you lose money.
Let's come back a bit before we get to the primordial level. You said TSA is a problem.
I think that government, Sanusi said government should start reviewing some of the policies. I don't know whether don't you guys see this over? Yeah. Government needs to look at, clear out, no shame here. There are things that affected the financial system around the world, especially Nigeria. Fall of oil. Then government kicked in the TSA. That was not. They won't take credit for TSA. It was Okonjo-Iweala and Jonathan that started this stuff. Got a software, pay everything. I want to know what. When they tried the first 1 or 2, the banks shook. They cooled down. Guys, if we try this thing, we'll put this place in recession. And these guys have come in and are going full hog.
So
and you can
see a problem.
You can listen. Every good thing has a downside.
So it's about the implementation.
So yes, I believe strongly that the pulling out of the resources off the carpets, off the legs of the banks, is not allowing them to think. And if you want to reflect the system, you need the banks. Unfortunately, these guys are shaking. So my take here is that there's no point sitting down here and thinking you will reflect this system outside the banks. You will not be able to do so.
Who's shaking, the regulators or the banks?
The banks.
Oh, okay.
But the banks are fundamentally challenged. And you're beginning to see it. Let me give you an instance. When UBA, Skybank, First Bank, and I think one other bank, Sterling Bank, did this kind of thing in Naira, the central bank came and gave them certain amount of penalties on them. Skybank paid 4 billion then. 2 months down the line, you now told us Skybank had not a liquidity problem. You hit these banks, 9 banks. You will call me back here in another day or 2. Hit them with some penalty and say. So you need to be smart. Why do you want to give somebody a medicine that will make him woozy? So that's my point. The bottom line, guys, is that we need to, the central bank and all regulators must begin to see themselves as support structures for this is a recession, madam.
Let's I think Mark will ask you a question.
It's a recession. It calls for strategic thinking. Yes, Mark.
Mark, go ahead.
I was saying, should we blame the regulators for actually doing what it is that they're meant to do? We recall, for instance, the oil spill in the United States where BP was fined very heavily. People will ask, was the idea for BP to sink? Because BP seems to be yet to recover from that fine. But when infractions are committed, are we saying that regulators should just sit and fold their hands and do nothing about it?
Not at all, not at all. And I like the name you called BP. That's a big boy in the oil and gas industry. When in the United States, the auto industry, we are going down south, they were called for a meeting. They flew in their private jets. And I remember very well that there was that cause an uproar because they came to get a bailout from government. Government gave them a bailout. Most of them are getting out of it now. You have a peculiar situation, Mark, where, when Soludo was the CBN governor, he told the banks, all of you put together is not what one big bank in South Africa. I want to consolidate you for strategic reasons. When they consolidated, the next move was for them to begin to go into the offshore market, and they begin to set up branches that are in Ghana, Gambia, and those banks that did that now are beginning to reap. I remember 1 or 2 years after they did that, some of them, we are in the lost zone. However, it's beginning to work out. So I'm saying here that if you hit these banks, you remember one of the banks that I just mentioned now said their non-performing loan is about 20%. That is criminal. The allowed is 5%. You now come and hit them again,